Hi guys, Davorka here. And last week was not my brightest hour, and I was not the happiest person on this earth and the most positive person. I was not flying high with my vibration at all. I was actually really annoyed about the environment and the situation that I was in, and also really extremely annoyed of my husband. Everything that he said, I just triggered me and it just bothered me. So I was staying away from him, and it was not just, it was not him, it was not his fault, it was everything and how I saw the world at that point, because I felt powerless. And why did I felt powerless? It's so the situation was this: for the last couple of months we have been rotating with viruses, with some kind of flu, or just cold, something like that. So it's okay, we've been dealing with it and everything, but last week my big girl had a really strong pain in her ear, so she was really screaming and crying that her ear hurts. So that would usually not be a problem if you have a family doctor or somewhere to go. But guess what? um, as I said in my previous videos, last year, we actually moved to another part of the country. And one thing we didn't check was how the health system was working here. And although the health system was not perfect at where we were, it was a little bit better because we had our own family doctor. So if this was the situation, we had some place to go. However, here in this part of the country, just because before COVID, people, the government, were doing some changes in the legislation, and they made certain restrictions toward the doctors and their patients. So because of that, the doctors just decided that they're just going to leave this part of the country and move to another part, or maybe even to another country, which is usually USA. And because of that, this province was left with lack of doctors, which usually wouldn't be such a big of a deal, because they still had walk-in clinics. So usually walk-in clinics work like normal clinic. They have doctors who have their own patients, but also patients who are not having those doctors as their own family doctors can come and seek their expertise, which was working everywhere, and that was also okay. But then COVID hit, and because of the COVID, all walk-in clinics were closed for anybody who is not a patient of a doctor there. So no walk-in clinics anymore, which means that everybody who don't have their own family doctor, and at this point for us, we are still newcomers in this city. But in this city, like almost more than half of the people in this city don't have their own family doctor. The reason why is just because there are no doctors available, and they made this restriction that one doctor has right to have certain amount of patients assigned to him. So because of that, of course, a lot of people don't have a doctor. So God forbid if I mean, don't get me wrong, I would love to be in a situation where I'm pregnant, but if that happens, I don't have any healthcare here. I don't have anyone to just check if I'm pregnant. I have to go to the ER. So all of us who don't have a family doctor, we have to go to the ER. So just imagine how difficult this is for people at ER, because they are dealing with some really difficult things, and then people with just a flu or an ear infection, they just come and seek their services again, and which is making quite of difficulty on the healthcare system at this point. I think they're changing something, but it's not so fast, right? So what happened last week, was that my big girl started really screaming because she had ear infection, as mentioned. So I had to go to the ER. I had no other possibility, no other option. And we arrived at the ER at 5 p.m. and we were there until we left it around 11:30 p.m. in at night. And just before that, we saw finally the doctor, and the doctor was with us for 3 minutes, and I'm not kidding. He just checked her ear and he talked to me and he asked about the symptoms, and that conversation took 3 minutes. So we were waiting there for 6.5 hours to just see the doctor for 3 minutes. And of course, I was so annoyed. I was so annoyed about the situation, because God forbid if there is something else, or if I have to go again with my other girl, because there's five of us here. And it was just, you feel powerless, and just, it's like, it's not a perfect scenario, right? So, okay, my girl was okay, but after that, I was really annoyed about the whole situation. And of course, you know how it is when one thing doesn't make sense and you feel powerless, and then you are in that mood, and then all other things that don't work out and are not really good come also. So your feeling of being pissed off is just getting bigger and bigger. So that happened to me. And at that point, I actually started being really annoyed at my husband. I love him dearly, but he just triggers me a lot. And usually, just so you know, people who do trigger you the most are the people who you love the most. So yeah, last week he was really triggering me so much that I really did my best of trying to stay away from him and a conversation with him, because I don't want to fight. I don't want to, be mean, and I don't want to lose control over myself. So it was quite challenging, but then I was thinking, okay, because everything happens for a reason. I believe in everything, and I know this situation is going to change. At the moment, it's shitty and it's not ideal, and it's never going to be ideal, let's be honest, but the situation is going to change, and it's not going to be like this forever. So I was like, okay, so what was the lesson that I had to learn, or maybe my girl had to learn, and that we had to go to the ER for her. So I was thinking about it, and then I remembered that, when you are in ER, you see so many cases of really difficulty, people with difficult situations and difficult health issues. And it's like, I don't want my girl to see all of that, but however, it was what it was. And I don't want to also shelter her of everything. I don't want to lie to her. So earlier, when we were there, like maybe an hour or 2 hours after we came in, another girl came in. She was my girl's age, and she was screaming from pain. And the reason was because she broke her arm, and it was quite visible. It was not open break, but it was, you could see that her hand was misshaped. And she was screaming, her mom was shaking, and it was quite, traumatic. And my girl saw that this girl was in pain. She didn't necessarily see the hand, but she said, like, why is she crying so much? Why is she so, screaming so loud? And one thing actually, I'm going to touch that later. And she was like, oh, what's happening? And then I said to her, okay, so this girl was not careful enough, and she broke her little hand, and this hurts a lot. And because my girl is really active, and she's like a little butterfly, like a little firecracker, she's running around, and she's really active. And we have stairs in our house, and often, almost daily, we tell her, just don't run over the stairs. And, even if you are running, just don't lose the grip of the handle, because, you can fall. It can be dangerous. And, when she saw this girl, I was like, okay, so how you're always running over the stairs, you're not watching where you're going, you do trip. She's like, yes. And I'm like, do you know that mommy and daddy said to you that you can trip, you can really hurt yourself? So this girl really hurt herself. You see how she's screaming, and it really hurts her. And she was feeling sorry for the girl. And I hope that then finally she understand, okay, mommy and daddy are worried about me, and I have to be more careful. And it feels to me that she is a little bit more careful, because she's not mindlessly running around all the time. She is still, but not so much as she did before. So that happened earlier in the day, and then later on, of course, a bunch of other people came. But later, almost an hour and a half before we were finally admitted, another lady came, and I was I was not really happy that my girl had to see this, but you know what? This is a reality. This happens, so maybe she had to learn another lesson for her later life. And this lady, she was in her early 20s, and it was really it was visible that she was on some kind of a trip. She was intoxicated, and she came accompanied with two officers, and she had her hands were tied. And my girl had asked, why is the police here? Why is she tied up? Like, why is she screaming so much? And like, you get into that situation, and now I have to explain my girl about drugs and my 5-year-old girl that, this girl is on a trip. And I was like, oh my God. Like, but I don't want to lie to her. And my point of being a mother and how I see my role of a parent is to guide her and to educate her the best to my knowledge, and to give her all the knowledge that she needs for her to step away when the time comes, and for her to make good decisions for herself. So, and of course, I'm aware that I'm just her mom. I'm not her owner. She's separate entity. She's a little girl, and she's going to become a grown up, one day, and she's going to go through the ages where drugs are going to be really and heavily involved in teenagers and 20s. So I said to her, like, sometimes people want to be happy. Everybody wants to be happy and just feel good. And sometimes people don't know that that comes from inside, and they're looking for that outside. And she's like, what do you mean? Then I said, they are drinking something like alcohol, or they're taking something that, or eating something that is from outside. But that something makes them feel good for only minute or for only a short time, and then after that they start acting like this, and then they get into a big lot of troubles, and sometimes, often, they even get into a trouble where police has to guide them to come to the hospital to become better because they become sick. She was like, really, mommy? So she is sick? And I said, yes, because she doesn't know how to be happy. She doesn't understand that happiness comes from inside and not from the outside. So I hope I explained the best that I could, because everything is traumatic, and everything can be traumatic if you treat it like that. But if you treat something with the explanation and explain something to the kid, as I always say, empower your kid, because your kid is your extension. So give them their own power, teach them how to take their own and use their own power as soon as possible, and then they're going to have a magnificent life. So I'm hoping I did this for her. And at the end, when I was thinking about this whole day, and I was like, okay, so was it really so miserable? Yes, I was not happy, of course. I was there with my girl, and I loved her. And actually, this all happened on Valentine's Day. I just remembered. So it was Valentine's Day. And I was like, okay, this is a shitty day of spending Valentine. But at least I'm with my love, right? With one of my loves in my life. So maybe this was something, and the lessons that my daughter needed to learn, maybe this was a lesson that I needed to learn also, in how to empower her even more. Maybe not again, but my power is that I choose to see it and to believe in it in this way. And guess what, guys? You're going to go through many shitty things in your life, many shitty things, maybe even, probably some even worse than this. I have been through many worse situations, but the one thing that you always have, and you will always have, is that you have the power of how you see the things, and you have the power of having your own perspective over the things. So at the end of the day, yes, I was really, I felt powerless, I felt weak, and I was really annoyed about the situation. And it actually lasted for a few days. And but then I remembered, you know what? This is my power. My power is how I'm going to see all of this and why everything had to happen this way. And what is my lesson through that? And my lesson was that power is in my hand, perspective is in my hand. So, how I'm going to see the situation, am I going to see it as helpful in some way and that something was learned from that? Then I'm good, and it's more positive for me. And or I'm going to see it as I'm completely helpless and I'm completely powerless and caught in the situation where I don't have any saying in it. So, and usually we as people are we tend to go with that other way, like life is happening to us, and we are just poor victims of the situations and of circumstances. However, just like Tony Robbins said, life is happening to for you, not to you. And I decided to see everything from the perspective that this was happening for me and I had to learn something out of that. And this is my power, and this is your power also. So, whatever situation you are in, no matter how stupid, difficult, shitty it is, your power is to see that this is something that you need to go through. You need to learn something from it, and then just leave it behind you, because that's what I did. And once I finally got to my senses and awakened myself again, I was like, oh my God, I'm doing it again. I lost myself a little bit. And it's okay. We all react to the situation. We all lost ourselves. Until we get back, that's okay. Because the problem is when you don't get back to, being yourself and being in control of yourself and being in your own power. That's the problem when you're going through life like a victim and in victim mentality. That's not the life that I want to live. Not anymore, actually. I lived it, and I actually mentioned that one time. I mastered being miserable and being powerless. Now it's time for me to just take back my control and my power, because I do have power, just like you. So I do hope that this resonated with you and that this helped you change certain perspective on certain situations in your life, because everything is about your perspective, how or about the meaning that you give to that situation. So think about it and just see it from another perspective. Give your own meaning that works for you, and take see life like it's happening for you and not to you. And if you have any comments, of course, you know what to do. Comment below, and until our next video, hit like, hit subscribe, and see ya. Bye bye.